This is the continuation of the great fall of the House of Targaryen. In this part, it gets right up to the point where the unfortunate fall of the House Targaryen begins. In here, you'll see the true identity of Aerys II Targaryen, Daenerys Stormborn's father, in the most grotesque way. Rhaegar is completely the opposite of his father, which is the brother to Daenerys Viserys III. But eventually, as everybody remembers in a flashback, he looks more clean shaven. But has anybody ever asked why? Why is it that he doesn't have a beard in the flashback, or his nails were trimmed? Because again, a mysterious person not mentioned, most likely someone that would have earned his trust, was allowed to give him a shave, trim his hair, and cut his nails. In the end, you also will see the younger version of Ned Stark, who meets Caitlyn, who originally was betrothed to his brother, Brandon. But Brandon was unfortunately murdered by his incidental situation of calling out Rhaegar to come out and die, and that was probably not the best course of action. During the time of the war, Caitlyn will give birth to her very first son, Robb Stark, while at the same time, Ned makes a discovery of his sister and another baby. Queen Lyanna Martell, of Dragonstone, Rhaegar's wife, and her daughter Rhaenys Targaryen, and the son who they believe to be the son of promise, Aegon, is viciously murdered under orders of Tywin Lannister. And so, which case, this takes place either at the same time or after Rhaegar is finally defeated by Robert I Baratheon. When Lyanna Stark, Ned Stark's sister, is found, and as you remember in a flashback, she does make a promise to him. A lot of people have controversy about this and feel that he was born of just a Targaryen, but that is false. In fact, as she is dying, she makes him promise to hide his identity for his own safety, and that he's not a bastard, that the father was actually Rhaegar Targaryen of the House Targaryen. So seeing that his name would most likely be Jon Targaryen, or maybe Rhaegar Targaryen Jr., it is Jon Snow, the baby. So he takes him as his own son. In the meantime, the mystery knight known as A.J., which is short for Aegon Jaehaerys Baratheon, because his mother was Princess Rhaella Targaryen, married to a Baratheon, who died during the time of the Blackfyre Rebellion, is granted permission by Aerys II to renounce the Baratheon name, especially because Aerys has no liking for the Baratheons anyway, for his own personal reasons, and re-strengthens the name by his bloodline Targaryen, thus becoming known as Uncle A.J. or Uncle Aegon, but is actually the unknown uncle, Daenerys Stormborn's uncle, who saves Viserys and Daenerys. He is married to a Valyrian who is also never mentioned in history for her safety, and they have one daughter together, cousin Elsa, which is Daenerys' cousin. His mother, Princess Rhaella Targaryen, though she looks pretty good for her age, her spirit flame goes out, which is by a Targaryen tradition. Unlike humans of Earth, some will show the age and some will not. And when William Bruce McEachran, later who is through a historical marriage to Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, are wed, he comes to learn of this. Viserys, of course, looking kind of in a stupor and, well, as much as a teenage guy could look, doesn't look mature yet because, again, they have to be in exile to keep from being killed. Daenerys is a very young girl and has many curiosities. But they have to flee in exile, and as everyone knows, it would be physically impossible to go unnoticed. Two children with very bright blonde hair, Viserys III packing Daenerys on his back, and making it safely to Essos. And because a woods witch had prophesied that the next born of Princess Rhaella, which is Aerys II's aunt, had another child, was purposely kept out of history, not even on genealogical records. This is why you'll never hear of him mentioned in the Game of Thrones, because it was prophesied that he should be under the watchful eyes of the kingdom. So if one can hide themselves and not even have a history or genealogical record, then it is also quite conceivable that upon being discovered, carrying your sister on your back, that one who is dubbed by Aerys II as the uncle, to make it simpler instead of being like a second or third cousin, which they both come to accept him as, that he is the one who actually saved them and took them to his place before they went to another friend of his, which is where the episode 1, season 1 Game of Thrones starts. So this is the flashbacks, current events, and looking into the future that leads to Robert's rebellion. At Dragonstone, Rhaegar's wife gives birth to a second child, who Rhaegar himself believes to be the promised one of light. And he is quite proud of having been a father to an heir prince. However, while this is going on, in the house of Tyrell, Quentin and Tyrell and a wife whose name is never identified has a son together, Olymer Tyrell. At the same time, Victor, and again, a wife who is never identified, has a son, and sometime later, a daughter, known as Victoria and Leo. This is the final part and the last days of the ruling of Aerys II Targaryen, who has been dubbed now the Mad King. The sister and queen is very well pregnant and at any moment is ready to give birth to the one who shall be known as Daenerys Stormborn of the House Targaryen, but is unaware that shortly after her birth, it will be the end of her life. Also, Jaehaerys II's sister and queen wife finally passes on, and they give her quite the ceremonial burial under the Red Keep in the catacombs. Some say that if Jaehaerys II, which is the grandfather to Rhaegar, Viserys III, and Daenerys, had he not choked on anything, he would have lived as long as his sister, wife, Queen. But she, as to some rumors may say, that she died of a broken heart. No one seems to really know. Unfortunately, the Mystery Knight, A.J., which is short for Aegon Jaehaerys Baratheon, which eventually he's going to have his last name renounced and changed by the decree and approval of Aerys II Targaryen to that of Targaryen. His mother becomes ill only because her spirit flame, having lived a long, good life, is due to go out as well. So we continue the final days leading to that of the demise of Aerys II Targaryen, known as the Mad King, and how it is that the House of Baratheon, by a claim of bloodline through Robert I Baratheon, gets the Iron Throne of Swords for the realm of the kingdom. As the scene now focuses with the Mystery Knight now having been discovered, much to the surprise of A.J., because he did not expect to be caught by Rhaegar. He's sitting on a log, and Rhaegar is listening intently. So, that's my story. Well, Rhaegar stands and kind of, with his hand to his chin, thinks for a moment. It is not easy for one to hide under the watchful eyes of the kingdom. You have done quite well for yourself. I would have never imagined anybody would be as highly achieved as you are. You're a man with no history and no genealogy. This is history in the making. Yes, but I'm still curious about something, Prince Rhaegar. About what? Why would you call me uncle? Well, my father, though he and I are at odds with each other, kind of thought that he always wanted to have a brother. After all, he only married his sister, who is his wife and queen. And he said he would only trust one who had no ties to any of the houses. And after all, he doesn't trust anybody with a sword or any sharp weapons. Which is why when you see him, you might be quite shocked. He doesn't look like any king that anybody would ordinarily see. His nails are long, his hair is long and matted, and he has a very long beard. Not exactly the most glorious type of king, but not that I would speak ill of my father anyway. So you must be prepared. You're not going to expect to see a king well dressed. Well, I imagine he's had a lot of stress in his life. Yes, and some of the decisions he's had to make, I'm sure, were hard, but I don't agree with some of the methods he uses. But I can say that freely because those who support me amongst the guards that you see before you, we don't agree with his methods and how he executes and punishes people. However, if he were to have a brother, he stated it would have to be one with no ties at all. You have no ties. You've been withheld from history and have no genealogical records. But you need not worry, Uncle. Your secret's safe with me, and I'm sure I can trust you won't say that anything about having seen me here, even though he did ask me to find you that he may know you. Yes, I take it there's some problems. None that you need to be concerned of yourself with. I may have inadvertently made some enemies, but that is my business. Well, that's fine. I won't press you for giving me any details. Well, you have the command that my father has sent me to give you. I shall not return to the Red Keep. I have something else I have to take care of. All right. You must present yourself before my father. He knows that you are out here, so there's no point in running. You would be found. Well, I have no intentions of running then. If he wishes to see me, then I will present myself. Yes, well, make sure you drink plenty of water, Uncle. You don't want to look like you're ill yourself. No, I been checking out a place out in Essos. A little bit dusty, I would imagine. Very well then. I must be going. Well, Aegon then holds out his hand. It was an honor to meet you. If I'm to be dubbed his brother, I imagine his brother in arms, yes, I think that is what he has plans on. Well, then I guess I would be an honor to have you as my nephew. Yes, imagine that. I never had an uncle before. Interesting. Well, Rhaegar has a smile about him. Uncle Aegon, I shall take my leave now. Aegon, in return, bows humbly before Rhaegar, and Rhaegar and the guards that protect him then trot off into a hill and disappear. Rhaegar's wife then comes out. So, any problems, Aegon? No, but there's been a change of plans. Can't hide forever. I figured it should have been only a matter of time before somebody would know that I, the Mystery Knight, would be discovered. The only thing they don't know is about the fact that I'm not in history or on any genealogical records. So I have to make my appearance before the king. So with that, she agrees, and they head off to King's Landing. In the meantime, well, now revealed secret and mysterious mind, Uncle A.J. rides to King's Landing. Rhaegar rides to a place in Dorne, a type of large structure, almost similar looking in color to that of Red Keep. There he secretly marries Lyanna Stark and consummates the marriage after having rode off with her with the help of a couple of the king's guard who support him in his cause as opposed to his father who has become the Mad King. This much then, because it's also something that the father is not happy about, and after much demand for Rhaegar to come out of Red Keep to die, caused them their own fate, demands the heads of Robert I and Ned Stark. When this is refused, foster father Jon recalls his banners, and thus begins Robert's rebellion. Robert's rebellion. The next year, Lyanna came face to face with Rhaegar, 10 leagues from Harrenhal. Was taken by him with the help of Sir Arthur Dayne and Sir Oswell Went. brother Brandon, on his way to River Run for his wedding, learned about Lyanna's disappearance and changed course towards King's Landing, accompanied by several companions: Ethan Glover, Joffrey Allister, Kyle Royce, and Albert Aaron. At the Red Keep, he roared for Rhaegar to, quote, come out and die. Though Rhaegar was not present, King Aerys II had Brandon and his companion arrested and charged them with treason, accusing them of plotting to murder of the crown prince. Aerys summoned their fathers to court, supposedly to answer the charge against their sons. Lord Robert Stark demanded a trial by combat, and though the king granted him the request, he chose fire as his champion. Lord Ricard was suspended from rafters above over a blazing fire whilst dressed in his armor, while Brandon, attached to a device which tightened a cord around his neck whenever he moved, was forced to watch as his father was slowly cooked inside his armor. Brandon strangled himself in an attempt to reach a long sword. King Aerys next demanded the heads of Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark. Lord Jon Snow responded by raising his banners in a revolt, starting Robert's Rebellion. Opinions on Rhaegar's motivation in taking Lyanna differ. According to Robert Baratheon, Rhaegar raped Lyanna hundreds of times. This is repeated by Eddard's young son, Bran Stark. However, Barristan Selmy is convinced that Prince Rhaegar left his lady Lyanna. Daenerys Targaryen believes that Rhaegar had stolen Lyanna away from her betrothed. When she is about to marry, she thinks to herself that if her paramour loved her, he would come and carry you off at sword point, as Rhaegar carried off his northern girl, quote unquote. According to Viserys Targaryen, Rhaegar had fought and died for the woman he loved, quote unquote, something which his sister Daenerys also believes. Additionally, one of the visions Daenerys sees in the House of the Undying depicts Rhaegar's death, where he whispers Lyanna's name with his last breath. However, Viserys also believes that Rhaegar had simply not been happy with his marriage to Lyanna, which had led to him taking Lyanna. Cersei Lannister, who was infatuated with Rhaegar, has similar beliefs, as she is convinced that Rhaegar would never have looked twice at the wolf girl if he had been satisfied in his wife. Cersei's uncle, Kevin Lannister, believes that if Aerys had accepted the proposal from Tywin Lannister to marry Cersei to Rhaegar, the war might have been avoided, as Cersei had been much more beautiful than Lyanna, and would have been able to give Rhaegar the sons he had wanted, something which Princess Lyanna Martell could not. Quite the fate. So as the Robert's Rebellion has now begun, Uncle Aegon finally makes his way and visits his mother, Princess Rhaella, the aunt to King Aerys II Targaryen. And they talk for a bit, and his mother, who is now at the point of her spirit plan to go out, being the last sibling of Jaehaerys II Targaryen, former king, prior to Aerys II, as this would end that line of lineage, is about to pass on to the spirit world. She assures assures her son, A.J., that if there be trouble, she will have the guards take his wife and child out of the city. In the meantime, Aegon notices something, and he listens. You hear that? His wife now speaks as his mother does. I hear nothing. Exactly my point. He is so quiet that the depths and the sound of nothing is deafening. It's like waiting for something to happen. Like a wild beast stalking its prey as a play, making ready to pounce. I shall return. If anything happens to me, you are to leave. Do not linger. Sashka agrees to this. And she and Aegon hug each other and give each other a kiss, and then does present himself before King Aerys II Targaryen. He makes his way through, while he announces who he is, guns him in allegiance. Aerys II Targaryen, of course, looks the worst. 9-inch long nails, long beard, very long matted hair. Not exactly the best. Except he such an allegiance, though he doesn't care too much for the name Baratheon. Aerys II, though, upon request by Aegon, asks if he may be permitted to renounce the name Baratheon, because his aunt, being his mother, he does carry Targaryen blood. This delights Aerys II Targaryen, who then promises that nobody shall know the secret, and that now that he knows who he is, he shall be on any historical record or in genealogical record. Aegon then decides to prove his loyalty to Aerys II Targaryen, as they both make their way to the dining hall, because now Aegon is a special guest of Aerys II Targaryen, as he is quite impressed how one could be never noticed by the watchful eyes of the kingdom, and never having been documented in history or any genealogical records. Aegon makes a request, like a suggestion, that he be the one to taste test the brew, hoping this will earn Aerys II's trust, and by some odd chance does. So they sit and eat, and Aerys II tells his food taster, don't think this is you're off the hook. You still have your duties to do. The taste tester agrees, and Aerys dismisses him. After much great conversation between the two of them, and is much to a surprise to everybody, Aegon finally, with much effort, asks Aerys II if he would trust him for grooming. Aerys II, of course, was leery, because he's never trusted anybody with knives or anything. But considering the fact that if Aegon was going to do him in, he would have done it already, agrees to this, and has the guards stand ready in case this be some type of deception. So Aegon then cuts his nails, and to some odd sound, the 9-inch nails fall to the floor. He then carefully, without any type of nervousness, being very calm and smooth-mannered, trims and shaves the beard off Aerys II Targaryen. He does give him a haircut up to a certain level of the shoulders, anyway. And Aerys II then looks at Aegon, who is, unfortunately, by accident, staring at Aerys II Targaryen. Well, are you going to stand there and look at me like I'm stupid or what? No, I beg your pardon, my king. I think you look very well dignified. Aerys II is about to say something, thinking this is a type of insult about how I looked before. Perhaps you'd like to see yourself in a mirror. He just happens to find one laying at one of the tables brought in by a groomsman. You know I have no reason to like you, so perhaps you could see for yourself. Aerys II Targaryen takes the mirror and looks himself in the mirror. He rubs his face with his hands, can't believe what he's seeing. Wow, that is amazing. Perhaps I should make you my groomsman. Well, I thank you for the offer, my king. Now, me and my wife and child are about to go get our new residence. Well, what child do you have? Her name is Elsa. She's about 1 or 2 years of age right now. And my wife is from the House of Valerian. Well, you did good picking a nice bloodline then. As he continues to look at himself in the mirror, he seems a bit distressed. I seem to have lost my youthful look in the last 10 years. Well, my king, if you would permit me to say so, perhaps it's because being a king is not easy. You must have much on your mind, and sometimes you have to make the decisions that nobody else can, and they're the hardest decisions of all. Yes, you have spoken well. He has the mirror to one of the guards who takes it and puts it back on the table. It is not easy being king. Sometimes I have to make decisions that no one would be willing to make. Ones that they might consider would make me mad. I already know the rumors. You're calling me the Mad King, but it doesn't matter. As long as I sit on this throne, my rule stands. I understand this, and I respect this. Well, I suppose you want to go, you and your wife from the House of Valerian. What's her name? If you don't mind me asking. Her name is Sasha. Sasha. I haven't heard that name before. Well, with your permission, I should like to take my leave and get my residence, but I promise to return. Yes, we have much more to talk about, you and I. Your history is very interesting, even though it's nothing documented about it. And you're not on any genealogical records. I'd imagine no man in the realm of the kingdom could ever hide from anybody, let alone the realm of the kingdom, and yet, here you stand and you did. I promise you this, as I'm sure you have said that my son promised not to reveal the secret. Nobody will ever know that you ever existed. You, me, and Rhaegar will be the only ones that knows. If anything happens to me, the secret will go with you. I thank you, my king. I shall return. As Aegon, Jaehaerys Baratheon, soon to be renounced, best known as Uncle Aegon, is making his way to King's Landing with his wife Sasha Valerian and his daughter Princess Elsa. The Robert Baratheon rebellion ensues like that of wildfire. Rhaegar then decides that it is time for him to be in the fight to defend the realm of the kingdom. And so he sadly says farewell to his wife and queen, Lyanna Martell, and apologizes for not having spent more time with her. He also announces secretly to her that she has a sister, wife, known as Lyanna Stark. And then he leaves her to enter into the rebellion. He places Jaime Lannister in charge of protecting his wife and children. And when he's out of earshot and out of eyesight before going into battle, goes to the other place located in Dorne, known as the Tower of Joy, and hires wet nurses to take care of Lyanna during her pregnancy, and places the Knights of the King's Guard, one being Gerald Hightower and a couple others, to defend the Tower of Joy at all cost. They agree to this, and then Rhaegar leaves to join his men, who are his supporters, to defend the realm of the kingdom. Back at the Red Keep, Sister Queen Rhaella, wife to Aerys II Targaryen, decides that with everything that's going on, should something befall her and Aerys II Targaryen, though he has been brutal and abusive to her, tells Viserys III that from this point on he is to be known as the heir and king of House Targaryen, should anything befall the realm of the kingdom. Viserys III, though as young as he is, understands this. And then she starts to go into labor and asks Viserys to be a good boy and go get the palace physician. Now, for some reason, though it is unclear, Stannis Baratheon seems to be losing his hair. We have no idea why, but he is bald for a while. But he does get some kind of his own treatments that is put onto his scalp. And though he is reluctant at first because he doesn't want to look like a goof or somebody who is not taken seriously, he does allow the treatment to be applied, and by the time Robert Baratheon's rebellion ends, he will have a full head of hair. In the meantime, A.J. Makes his way, after leaving his wife Sashka and daughter Princess Elsa in care at his mother, Princess Rhaella, who is the aunt to Aerys II Targaryen's care, just for their own safety, to the Red Keep, and unfortunately is unprepared for the things that he sees. This is all going on while Robert I Baratheon is going to be finishing off at single combat against Rhaegar Targaryen at the Battle of the Trident. So, at the request of the Dying Knight, because the Dying Knight tells him that there is no physical way for him to defeat this one, known as Jaime Lannister, because he is very highly skilled with a sword. Uncle Aegon, as he has been now dubbed, and no longer carries the last name Baratheon, but is approved to carry the last name Targaryen, understands that the only one that could possibly beat Jaime Lannister is Barristan Selmy, but he is not on the premises right now. So, after having made Aegon promise him, as he's lying on the steps dying, to save the last two dragons, or there will not be a House Targaryen ever again. Aegon understands this, and as he's getting ready to leave, ducks behind a pillar real quickly and remains silent. Jaime just happens to be looking as if he's trying to see if he's heard any movement, and after staring for a little bit, continues on. Letting out a bit of sigh of relief, Aegon is skillfully able to at least go unnoticed by Jaime and leaves the Red Keep, looking for Viserys III, heir and proclaimed king by his mother, Rhaella Targaryen, wife to Aerys II Targaryen. He regrets not being able to keep his promise to revisit King Aerys II, and it was a hard choice for him to make. Either try to defend Aerys and lose his life, and then the last two dragons, Aerys and Daenerys, who now is a bit older, about 4 or 5, gets killed, or go save them and take them to his residence out in Essos, based on a prophecy made by the Woods Witch long ago when he was born. So knowing that his only decision is to fulfill the prophecy and his destiny, he carefully, trying not to be noticed, goes and sees someone carrying a girl on his back. He hires, with a warning, not to ask questions, but to do as told, and he will be paid. To follow him. The young lad agrees, and the parents tell the stranger, who they do not know is Aegon Targaryen, that they're leaving the city anyway, because they expect much chaos and discourse to happen before much longer, though the city has not been sacked yet. So, in which case, they will be along shortly. Aegon assures them that as long as no questions are asked, and no deception on their part, that he will leave the lad outside the city in a safe area where they can meet up and go on their way. They agree to this, and so they set out. After seeing what looks like a bright-haired, blonde young man packing a bright blonde-haired girl on his back, like what William Bruce Targaryen of the human world of Earth would call Piggy Back ride, he kind of has a hunch that these are the two dragons he must save, and they're not going to get very far going like that. So after carefully getting out of the Red Keep before the gates are shut and barred, which happens after the parents of the young lad with the hay wagon goes out, he finally stops them. I think you're not going to get very far like this. May I say, Prince Viserys, I presume I am addressing. You are, and what are you going to do? Kill us? No. My destiny is to save you. Packing your sister like that, you're going to get caught for sure, and then it'll be the death of us all. I don't want you to ask any questions. I am in charge of making sure you get to where you're going safely. All I want you to do, get in the hay wagon, without question, and stay low. Understand? Oh, well, you better make up your mind. They're not going to wait for you to answer, and I can probably take out some, but I can't take out on everybody. All right. So he lets Daenerys off his back, and she crawls into the hay wagon, and then Viserys does too. He pulls a type of blanket over so they can't be noticed, and Then they continue on. For a little while, things seem to be going pretty good. Viserys and Daenerys talk for a bit, quietly, and then here's people talking as the wagon comes to a stop. What you got going here? Nothing. I was told to vacate the city. What's in the wagon? Hey. Mind if I have a look? Aegon almost seems like he wants to grab his sword, but doesn't make a sudden move. Then a higher commanding knight comes up. What you doing there? Well, we found this guy here, which seems kind of strange, a knight and some common boy here with a hay wagon. Just kind of wondering what they might have in it. Well, we haven't time for that. It's about time to make ready for the new king in King's Landing. Come on, unless you want to explain to the new king why you were lingering out here. All right, I'm letting you off the hook this time, but I'm sure our paths will cross again. And you're right, we don't want your kind in the city. King's Landing's going to have a new rule and a new look. No longer will Targaryens be telling us what to do. So with that, Aegon agrees in agreement, just so they don't get suspicious, and then they trot off. Viserys lets out a sigh. That was close. Shh. Remember, you can't be talking until we get to where we're going. Viserys doesn't say anything, and Daenerys just looks at her brother, and then peering from space under the blanket up at Aegon. Then they continue on. Once they get to a certain destination, then he meets up with somebody else he had prearranged and trusted. Did my wife and daughter make it out? Yes, actually, they did. As promised, I guess by your mother, she made sure she got out safely. And my mother, I'm sorry, the excitement, I think, caused her to, she died. I see. But I promise you, I will find a way to make sure she gets a proper burial in the catacombs under the Red Keep. Thank you, my friend. You're a good man. Try not to get yourself killed in the process. I don't know much about this King Robert I Baratheon, but I wouldn't want to cross paths with one that's going to probably most likely be known as a Kingslayer. I would have defended him myself, but I had a destiny to fulfill. And my destiny is not complete yet. I understand. Aegon pays the gentleman to make sure that his mother gets a proper burial, hopefully without him being caught as well in the catacombs of the Red Keep. All right, you two. It's time for you to get out of the wagon. Well, we're in the middle of nowhere. You expect us to be out here? No, I expect you to do what you're told. I am your uncle now, and you two are going to ride on this horse. We're going to go to my place. There I will take care of you until you reach your age of manhood. Then I have another friend who will put you up there for a time until all lessons of temperance, proper etiquettes, laws of Targaryen and the realm of the kingdom have been learned. One day, you will be a king. It's about time you act like one and just do what you're told. Fine. So he gets out, not seeming too happy about the way he's talked to, but doesn't say much, because like that of any king or prince, a regent, for example, if it was a woman, would always have the upper authority. So him and Daenerys get on the horse. He then pays the lad with the hay wagon. Remember, you did not see me, and you did not do anything, in case someone should come across. I understand, because if I find out that somebody's looking for me, I'll be looking for you. I swear I won't say another word. Good. So with that, he watches as the common boy and his hay wagon go off to meet with his parents, who should by now be out of the Red Keep. Then Aegon and Viserys and Daenerys on another horse ride a different direction to his residence, along with meeting up with his wife, Sashka Valerian, and his daughter, Daenerys' cousin, Princess Elsa. And so this is how the last moments of the Mad King, Daenerys Stormborn of the House Targaryen's father, meets its end. Jaime Riker. Sir Jaime Riker is a ranger of the Night's Watch and a knight from House Riker. His appearance and character. According to Tyrion Lannister, Jaime has a noble face. He is not known for his patience and has a sardonic smile. In history, Jaime remained loyal to Aerys II Targaryen during Robert's rebellion. After the sack of King's Landing, he was given the choice by Lord Tywin Lannister between the wall or execution. Both Jaime and Sir Alliser Thorne joined the Night's Watch. Jorah Mormont. Sir Jorah Mormont is an exiled knight, the former head of House Mormont and Lord of Bear Island. He fled Westeros to escape execution for trading in slaves and took up work as a mercenary in the Free Cities, eventually entering the service of the last Targaryens. He becomes one of the most trusted companions of Daenerys Targaryen. Jorah is portrayed in the television adaptation Game of Thrones by Lane Glenn. Appearance and character. Jorah is a large, middle-aged man, swarthy and hairy. He is black-bearded and balding, but still strong and fit. Jorah is shorter, but more muscular than Sir Barristan Selmy. Daenerys Targaryen considers him not particularly handsome. Jorah is respected by the Dothraki for his swordsmanship. Jorah wears wool and leather, with his dark green tunic displaying the standing black bear of House Mormont. He also owns horsehair leggings and a painted vest in the Dothraki style. Jorah armors himself in mail as well as gauntlets, greaves, and a flat-topped great helm of dark gray steel. He wields a longsword and a dagger. In history, for his youth, Jorah was married at a young age to a girl from House Glover, as desired by his father, Jeor Mormont, Lord of Bear Island. While they were married for 10 years, Jorah's wife was unable to carry a child to term. She eventually died following her third miscarriage. Presumably, prior to Robert's rebellion, Jeor gave up the lordship of House Mormont by joining the Night's Watch, which made Jorah the Lord of Bear Island in his own right. Peter Baelish, best known as Littlefinger. Peter was given a fortnight to recover at Riverrun, during which time Lisa helped care for him. Caitlyn did not go to see him, and Peter refused to see Edmure, who had served as Brandon's squire during the duel. During this fortnight, Peter slept with Lisa again. He would later claim to have taken the maidenhood of both Tully's sisters, due to his belief that his first encounter with Lisa had actually been with Caitlyn. When the fortnight had passed and Peter was strong enough, Lord Hoster sent Peter away from Riverrun. Caitlyn did not say goodbye to him. However, Lisa had become pregnant with Peter's child as a result of their second sexual encounter. After Peter had been sent away, Lisa revealed her pregnancy to her father, hoping he would relent and allow Lisa and Peter to marry. Instead, Hoster, who had believed Peter to be too lowborn, forced Lisa to drink moon tea to abort the pregnancy. Appointment to the Small Council. Back at the Fingers, Peter sent Caitlyn a single letter after the death of her betrothed Brandon. However, she burned the letter without reading it, and they would not see each other for many years to come. Caitlyn married Eddard Stark during Robert's Rebellion and went north to Winterfell after the conclusion of the war. Peter used to dream about Winterfell, always imagining it as a dark and cold place. Lord Owen Merryweather. In appearance and character, Owen was an old man at the time of Robert's Rebellion. He was considered amiable, but not capable. Owen was famous for throwing feasts and lavishing praise upon King Aerys II. In history, during a feast King Aerys II Targaryen held when Cersei Lannister came to court for the first time, Lord Owen talked about raising taxes on wine, which led to Lord Rhaegar joking about Lord Tywin Lannister shitting gold. When Lord Tywin resigned his position as Hand of the King in 281 AC, Owen was named the new Hand by King Aerys II Targaryen. With Tywin gone from court, the new focus of Aerys' mistrust and paranoia was his own son and heir, Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone. At court, there was growing tension between the factions loyal to the king and those loyal to Rhaegar. It fell to Lord Merryweather and Grand Maester Pycelle the unenviable task of keeping peace between the two factions. Owen proved ineffectual in preventing the uprising that came to be known as Robert's Rebellion. And Lords Jon Arryn, Robert Baratheon, and Eddard Stark began their rebellion. Owen sent missives to the lords of the Seven Kingdoms, declaring them outlaws and demanding their heads. He never stirred from King's Landing, and this, coupled with news of Ned and Robert's successful return to their respective seats of power, made the paranoid Aerys believe that Lord Owen was conspiring with them. He was subsequently stripped of lands and titles and exiled for his failure, and was replaced as Hand of the King by Lord John Connington. King Robert I Baratheon eventually restored the Merryweather titles and some of their lands to Owen's grandson, Orton. Lyanna Stark. During Robert's Rebellion, the next year, Lyanna came face to face with Rhaegar 10 leagues from Harrenhal, and was taken by him with the help of Sir Arthur Dayne and Sir Oswell Went. When her brother Brandon, on his way to Riverrun for his wedding, learned about Lyanna's disappearance, he changed course towards King's Landing, accompanied by several companions, Ethan Glover, Geoffrey Mallister, Kyle Royce, and Albert Aaron. At the Red Keep, he roared for Rhaegar to come out and die, quote unquote. Though Rhaegar was not present, King Aerys II was, and had Brandon and his companions arrested and charged them with treason, accusing them of plotting the murder of the crown prince. Aerys summoned their fathers to court, supposedly to answer the charge against their sons. Lord Rickard Stark demanded a trial by combat, and though the king granted him the request, he chose fire as his champion. Lord Ricard was suspended from rafters over a blazing fire whilst dressed in his armor, while Brandon, attached to a device which tightened the cord around his neck whenever he moved, was forced to watch as his father was slowly cooked inside his armor. Brandon strangled himself in an attempt to reach a longsword. When King Aerys next demanded the heads of Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark, Lord Jon Arryn responded by raising his banners in revolt, thus starting Robert's rebellion. Again, the opinions on Rhaegar's motivation in taking Lyanna differ. According to Robert Baratheon, Rhaegar raped Lyanna hundreds of times. This is repeated by Eddard's young son, Bran Stark. However, Barristan Selmy is convinced that Prince Rhaegar loved his lady, Lyanna. Daenerys Targaryen, much later in her life, believes that Rhaegar had stolen Lyanna away from her betrothed, and when she is about to marry, she thinks to herself that if her paramour loved her, he would, quote, come and carry you off at sword point, as Rhaegar carried off his northern girl, unquote. According to Viserys Targaryen, Rhaegar had fought and died for, quote, the woman he loved, unquote. Something which his sister Daenerys also believes. Additionally, one of the visions Daenerys sees in The House of the Undying depicts Rhaegar's death, where he whispers Lyanna's name with his last breath. However, Viserys also believes that Rhaegar had simply not been happy with his marriage to Elia, which had led him to taking Lyanna. Cersei Lannister, who was infatuated with Rhaegar, has similar beliefs, as she is convinced that Rhaegar would never have looked twice at the Wolf Girl if he had been satisfied in his wife. Cersei's uncle, Kevan Lannister, believes that if Aerys had accepted the proposal from Tywin Lannister to marry Cersei to Rhaegar, the war might have been avoided, as Cersei had been much more beautiful than Lyanna, and would have been able to give Rhaegar the sons he wanted, something which Princess Elia Martell could not. Ned Stark during Robert's Rebellion. With his father and brother dead, Eddard was now the Lord of Winterfell. He wanted to raise his banner to join Robert's Rebellion. The getting from the Vale of Arryn to the north was complicated by the loyalty to the Iron Throne of Gulltown, the Vale's chief port. Eddard crossed the mountains of the Moon to the Fingers and hired a fisherman to bring him to White Harbor with a boat. They were caught by a storm on the Bight, and the fisherman drowned. However, his daughter brought Eddard to the Three Sisters. When he arrived at Sisterton, House Borrell's maester urged Lord Borrell to deliver Eddard's head to King Aerys II Targaryen, but Lord Borrell, knowing that Jon Arryn and Robert Baratheon had taken Gulltown in the meantime, was unsure who would prevail in the conflict. Thus he let Ned leave for White Harbor, telling him to remain silent about his stay in Sisterton in case the rebellion failed. Eddard called his banners and marched south to join Robert and Jon, arriving in time to turn the tide at the Battle of the Bells. Afterward, he went to Riverrun to marry Caitlyn Tully, who had been betrothed to his brother Brandon before his death. Jon Arryn married Caitlyn's sister, Lisa, in the same ceremony. The double wedding bound House Tully to the rebels' cause. The rebels won their decisive victory in the Battle of the Trident, in which Robert killed Prince Rhaegar Targaryen in single combat at the Rubyford. Because Robert had been wounded by Rhaegar, it fell on Eddard to pursue the remnants of Aerys' armies to King's Landing. When Eddard arrived at the capital, Lord Tywin Lannister's forces had already sacked the city. Eddard had developed contempt for House Lannister during the rebellion, as Tywin had remained neutral in an apparent attempt to join the winning side in the end. Eddard's contempt increased when he learned that Tywin had conquered the city by treachery, and that his men had brutally killed Rhaegar's wife, Lyanna Martell, and children, Rhaenys and Aegon. In addition, Lannister flags were flying over the Red Keep when Eddard arrived, and as he rode into the throne room to claim the crown for Robert, he found King Aerys' body at the steps leading to the Iron Throne, on which the king's killer, Sir Jaime Lannister, was sitting. Eddard felt the sack of King's Landing dishonored Robert's cause. He was disappointed that Robert, upon arriving in the city, did not share his moral outrage, and in particular, defended the murder of Rhaegar's children. He also ignored Eddard's counsel that Jaime should be made to join the Night's Watch for breaking his oath as a knight of the King's Guard by not protecting the king. Their disagreements created a rift between Eddard and Robert that not even Jon Arryn was able to breach. Eddard left Robert in King's Landing and went to Storm's End, where he lifted the siege of the castle. Lord Mace Tyrell and his armies yielded to Eddard without a fight. Afterwards, Eddard traveled to the Red Mountains of Dorne to liberate his sister, Lyanna, who apparently was held at the Tower of Joy. When Eddard arrived along with 6 companions, he found the tower guarded by 3 members of the King's Guard, Arthur Dayne, Oswell Went, and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower. The resulting skirmish saw the deaths of all but Eddard and 1 companion, Howland Reed. Eddard is said to have killed Arthur, the Sword of the Morning, in single combat. Unfortunately, when Eddard found Lyanna, she was already dying. Before her death, she made Eddard promise her something. What he promised her was not yet been revealed. The experience haunts Eddard, and he recalls her "promise me" on multiple occasions. However, he shared grief over Lyanna led to his reconciliation with his friend, now King Robert I. When Eddard returned home to Winterfell, he brought with him his bastard son, Jon Snow. This strained the relationship with his wife, Caitlyn, who had given birth to their son, Robb, at Riverrun during the war. Eddard refused to speak to her about Jon's mother. However, stories concerning her identity circulated nonetheless. When Caitlyn heard rumors that the boy's mother was the Dornish noblewoman, Ashara Dayne, she confronted Eddard about it, but he told her in a brusque manner that the child was his blood, and that was all she needed to know. He subsequently silenced the rumors about Ashara. Sansa Stark recalls hearing whispers that Jon's mother was common-born. Lord Edric Dayne believes that, rather than his aunt Ashara, Jon Snow's mother was a woman called Rhaella, who worked for House Dayne, and at one point served as Edric's wet nurse. When asked about the mother of his bastard son by King Robert I Baratheon, Eddard also mentions the name Rhaella. However, Lord Godric Borrell claims that the daughter of the fisherman who sneaked Eddard away from the Fingers gave birth to Jon Snow. Eddard buried the bones of his deceased kin in the crypt of Winterfell, breaking the tradition of only Stark kings and lords having statues. Ned had them carved for Brandon and Lyanna next to that of Lord Rickard. Barbara Dustin, now Lady of Barlton, resented that Eddard returned the horse, but not the bones of her husband, Lord William, who had died fighting alongside Ned in Dorne. Ned's younger brother, Benjen, joined the Night's Watch. Robert I Baratheon during Robert's Rebellion. News of the kidnapping led Lyanna Stark's eldest brother, Brandon, and later her father, Lord Ricard, to King's Landing, demanding justice. Both were executed by order of King Aerys II Targaryen, who demanded that Lord Jon Arryn turn over Robert and Eddard to him. Jon refused and rose up in rebellion instead with Eddard, now Lord of Winterfell, following the deaths of his father and older brother, and Robert rallying the North and the Stormlands respectively. Not well, some of these scroll pages are a bit dusty. Where was I? Oh, yes. Not all of Aaron's bannermen, blow some of this dust off here, supported the rebellion. However, Robert fought at Goldtown, where Marge, Grafton, and other loyalists from the Vale blocked the port. Robert slew Grafton and sailed back home to Storm's End to call his banners. However, some of his own remained loyal to the throne. When Robert learned that Lords Grandison, Catherine, and Fell had gathered their hosts and planned to join forces at Summerhall in order to march on Storm's End, he rode ahead with his knights to Summerhall. He fought each of the lords in turn, defeating them all. Robert returned to Storm's End with his captives, and there won the loyalty of Lords Catherine and Grandison, as well as Silveraxe Fell, the son of Lord Fell, whom Robert had slain. Free to march north so he could join forces with Jon Arryn and the Northmen, Robert marched out again, leaving his younger brother Stannis in charge of Storm's End. At Ashford, Lord Randyll Tarly fell upon Robert with his band and defeated Robert's forces at the Battle of Ashford, before Lord Mace Tyrell could arrive with main forces from the Reach. Robert escaped capture with the bulk of his forces and continued his journey north. Aerys wanted someone young and vigorous to match Robert, and so named Lord John Connington as his Hand of the King. Connington personally led a mighty army into the field, giving chase to Robert. Robert's march became a grueling one. He became wounded and separated from his men. At the Sony Sept, Robert took refuge. When Connington and his army arrived at the town and began searching the houses, the residents actively aided Robert, keeping him hidden from the king's men. In the end, they hid him in a brothel. When Lords Eddard Stark, Hoster Tully, and Jon Arryn arrived with a rebel army, the Battle of the Bells began. Robert came out of the brothel in which he had been hiding and fought with Connington, almost killing him. One of Robert's bastard children, Bella, fathered upon a whore in the whorehouse, was named after the battle. King Aerys began to realize that Robert was the greatest threat to the Targaryen dynasty since Daemon I Blackfyre, and exiled Connington, naming Lord Carlton Chalstead as his Hand of the King in Connington's stead, to secure the aid of House Tully. Jon Arryn and Eddard Stark married Lord Hoster's daughters, Lisa and Caitlyn. Robert attended the wedding. Robert led the rebel forces during the Battle of the Trident, the decisive battle at War's End. Around this time, Robert proclaimed his intention to claim the Iron Throne. Of all three leaders of the rebellion, Robert had the better claim, due to the fact that his grandmother had been Princess Rhaella Targaryen, the youngest daughter of King Aegon V Targaryen. To justify Robert's claim, the Maesters would later use his blood ties to House Targaryen, though it was conquest which won him the throne. In 283 AC, the rebel and loyalist forces fought at a place that became known as the Ruby Ford, located on the northern bank of the Trident. Robert and Prince Rhaegar Targaryen met on horseback in single combat, with the battle raging on all around them. Rhaegar wounded Robert before Robert killed Rhaegar with a blow to the chest from his warhammer. Eventually, the Targaryen host broke and ran. When Lord Roose Bolton advised Robert to execute Sir Barristan Selmy, a knight of Aerys' King's Guard, who had been severely wounded and taken captive, Robert refused and instead had his own maester treat Selmy's wounds. Wounded and unable to chase the loyalists, Robert gave the pursuit of the remnants of the Targaryen army to Eddard Stark, leading the van. Eddard followed the loyalists back to King's Landing. However, Lord Tywin Lannister had arrived earlier with an army and had begun to sack King's Landing. Aerys, his two grandchildren, and his daughter-in-law died in the battle. After Robert arrived in King's Landing, Tywin presented him with the mutilated bodies of Lyanna Martell, Rhaegar's wife, and their two young children, Aegon and Rhaenys. While Robert was pleased they were dead, Eddard Stark was outraged and disgusted by the act, calling it murder and saying the young prince and princess were no more than babes. Robert's response was, "I see no babes, only dragon spawn." The argument led to Eddard leaving King's Landing the next day to fight the final battles alone. It took the death of Lyanna and their shared grief to reunite the pair in friendship. Robert was thereafter haunted by Lyanna's memory and the desire for further vengeance against the slain Rhaegar. Be sure to stay tuned and continue reading the scrolls. As Palace Historian, I will now have translated the parts of Robert's Rebellion, and it will start out with many battles. The last two battles will be the demise of Prince Rhaegar, heir to the Iron Throne of Swords for the realm of the kingdom, after Aerys II is slain by one who shall be known as Kingslayer. The uncle to Daenerys and Viserys will teach them many things, proper etiquettes, mannerisms, and try to give them a proper upbringing in the Targaryen tradition. And so the saga of Robert's Rebellion